Hi guys, how are you doing today? Hope you are having an amazing day. Ready for some new drama from Ask a Lawyer? Let's go to the first one, about OP's father, who didn't invite OP to his wedding and hid that he is marrying his mistress even when OP asked. Listen to the story, guys, to find out what OP did, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, female 26, and my dad, male 54, have a somewhat awkward relationship. He tries to get along with me, but I can't trust him 100% because he was unfaithful to my mom, female 53, twice. The first time was when I was 3 years old, and from that infidelity my stepsister was born. The second time was when my mom was pregnant with my little brother when I was 11 years old. My mom found out about his infidelity 3 years after my little brother was born and kicked him out of the house. When I was little, my dad was what could be considered the best dad in the world, since he visited me every day, even though we didn't live together, and he was always looking out for me. But after my mom got pregnant, his attitude changed and he started to put us on the back burner. When my dad left home, he would come to visit me and my little brother 2 or 3 times a week. If we were lucky, he would take us out to eat and take us back to our house. He always told us he had no money and didn't want to give more than $325 USD in alimony to my mom. Everything remained the same until 2 years later, when my mom told me he was going to marry his mistress. I am not temperamental, and I prefer to talk about things, so I decided to wait quietly for him to call me to talk and give me an invitation, but that never happened. Being close to the date of his wedding, I asked him if we could go to the theater that day, and he just told me that he could not because he was going to be busy. I understood that he had no intention of telling me soon. It was about 6 months after his wedding, and I decided to ask him directly why he did not tell me that he got married. He nervously told me that he did not know how I would react, but that he could introduce us to his wife. I told him that I did not want to meet her. I thought he was going to tell me a date and that we were going to be able to talk clearly about it with his wife, but I was wrong. My dad decided to introduce her to me on my 18th birthday as a surprise. I was very uncomfortable, and so was my brother, but none of them said anything. I just knew that was the last straw, and I decided that I was not going to invite him to my wedding either. I'm now about 4 months away from my wedding to a wonderful man, and I'm still keeping my word. My mom asked me if my dad was going to walk me down the aisle, but I told her that he was not invited. She got angry and said that I could not exclude my dad from such an important event in my life, and that I should let that grudge go. She also said that I'm not a child anymore. She looked upset, so I started to consider whether to tell my dad, but he would still only attend as a guest. My fiancé also thinks I'm overreacting. He thought that my dad had just abandoned me. So am I the a-hole for not wanting to invite my dad to my wedding? Well, he didn't want OP at his wedding. Why should OP invite him to hers? Also, it sounds like he abandoned OP. He has repeatedly disrespected OP's family and clearly shown his selfish behavior. Totally understandable OP doesn't want him at the wedding. It's only surprising OP's mom is still sticking up for him after everything. I definitely don't think OP is overreacting. He cheated on OP's mom and didn't invite OP to his wedding. He doesn't get to attend OP's. So simple in my opinion. And now let's see if the community agrees with me. Tangerine Bouquet says, "Not the a-hole for not inviting your father if you don't want him at the wedding. He was an a-hole for surprising you on your birthday with his wife, of many years at that point, who was his mistress and helped break up your parents' marriage. He didn't invite you to or even tell you about his wedding. He sounds pretty awful overall. Do you even know your stepsister from the previous infidelity? His bit of showing up and doing part of the dad thing with you doesn't erase all that. For lying to your fiancé, which you clearly state only to your response to the bot, you're the a-hole. That's a terrible way to start a marriage, and he should be rethinking. And you two should be in premarital counseling with this big a topic." Miriam Keck says, "Not the a-hole. He wasn't a child either when he decided not to invite you to his wedding. So I don't see why your mom's argument is you're not a child anymore." Proverbs 21:3 says, "Not the a-hole. Aside from him not telling you about the wedding, even when you gave him a chance to tell you, he just said that he was busy that day. Then he sprung his new wife, former mistress, on you at your birthday. Not cool. Not kosher. However you want to say it. It was unkind as it put the focus on her, not you, on your birthday, and your 18th birthday at that. I get it. You would be seething with resentment the entire time he walked you down the aisle, and this is your wedding day. Who wants to seethe on that special day? Same thing with inviting him. Only do it if it feels comfortable. Otherwise, don't do it. Your mom is wrong. You can exclude him from such an important event in your life. Your feelings are valid, and it is wrong of others to treat you like they are insignificant. Ed invited me on a vacation with his family, and we were across the country in California when I'm from Missouri. And when we were there, and I was staying at his parents' timeshare and using his parents' rental car, and didn't have flight tickets home for almost 2 weeks, he told me he'd been unfaithful. I was mad at him, and especially mad at how manipulative it seemed that he told me when I had nowhere else to go and no way to get anywhere. I told him to leave the resort for the afternoon so I could think, and he was resistant to that at first, but finally did. I called his mom, who was at the beach, saying that I really needed her help, and it was a really delicate matter, so please don't tell anyone else yet. She came to the room worried, and I had already packed. I asked her if she could take me to an S-Health clinic, then to a rental car place. She was even more worried hearing what I was asking for, and asked me what had happened. I said that I just found out Ed had been unfaithful in our relationship, and I needed to get some tests. And I wanted to book a rental car because I was feeling stressed and trapped in the same place as him after getting that news, and wanted to be able to get some space. She took me. Honestly, it was awkward because she wanted to talk to Ed, but was upset with him, and I kept asking her to at least wait until I'd gotten tested and got in the car. She did, and I put all my luggage in the car and drove to a hotel in the area that first night to cry. I told her that I was going to need some space, and I didn't know how much, so don't wait up for me to be back. But in the morning, I decided I wanted to go home. I called the rental car company and arranged to book a different car that I could drive long distance, and decided to make a road trip of it, since I still had nearly 2 weeks off work. My phone was blowing up, but I had put it on Don't Disturb and hit the road. It was a few days before I checked my messages from Ed. I'd been answering texts from other people, but avoiding the messaging app we used. And he was really angry I went straight to telling his mom and asking her to take me to the clinic, which in his mind was petty to tell his mom that I was afraid he had given me something. I didn't feel like it was petty. I genuinely wanted to get tested ASAP so I could get treated for anything without waiting, if I needed to be. He was also angry I asked his mom to help me get an in-town rental car, implying to her that I would stay to work stuff out and then just disappear. I felt like I didn't lie. I told her I needed space and wasn't sure for how long. Then I figured out that was probably forever. I haven't answered his messages yet, but he keeps on sending me angry ones. Am I the a-hole for asking his mom for help? He thought he had OP trapped in an isolating situation, where OP would just have to deal with the news and suffer out the vacation without blowing into a fight because his parents were there. It sounds like his mom was there for OP when she asked for help getting out, and now he's upset that his plan didn't work. He's probably getting crap from them, and he deserves it. OP should not look back. And now let's hear the community's opinion. MD Thomas says, not the a-hole. He is for cheating on you and telling you during a time when you were basically stuck with him. Getting tested was not petty. It was a valid health concern. As far as telling his mom, well, she had a right to ask you why you needed help, and you had every right to tell her why. It's not like she wouldn't have found out anyway. He can't expect this to stay private. New Beginnings Hey says, not the a-hole, and his mom sounds like a good person. You don't owe him anything. He is not the victim in this situation, and you're right to block him and anyone else who doubts that. Peggy HW says, not the a-hole. If he didn't want his mom to know he cheated, he shouldn't have cheated. This is pure deflection to try to make you the bad guy. He's wrong. You're not. My son lives with me, which is fine. He is 35, but I have a big house, and I appreciate the company and occasional help around the house. Previously, he lived with his ex-girlfriend, Kira, who he had 2 children with. I love my grandsons, and was very blessed that even from pregnancy, that Kira let me be very involved, as her mother died when she was very young, and she doesn't have much family as she bounced around the foster system. Early on, even before the kids, we became close, and I viewed her as a daughter, which my son encouraged. Last year, while Kira was pregnant with their second child, they split up. My son blames Kira, but I know from living with him and being a close support that it is at best 50-50. Once they split, my son decided he didn't want anything to do with Kira or the kids, and his previously encouraged and embraced view of our friendship turned, and he wanted me to have nothing to do with Kira or the kids. I told him no. I was going to continue to be a big part of my grandkids and Kira's life. This has caused some friction, but we mostly operate on a don't ask, don't tell. Once a week, I go to Kira's to see the kids, usually after I go grocery shopping. My son always gives me a list of what he wants, and then I get that plus what I want, and what I used to cook for us during the week. I do all the cooking for me and my son, but he often doesn't eat my food, and opts for the ready-made stuff he asks me to get him instead, if that matters. And I always ask Kira if she needs anything. She usually says no, but I still always bring some fruits and veggies. She likes the same food I do, so I also will sometimes bring her part of what I get for myself if I know it's too much for me to eat during the week. An example is salmon. My son hates fish, but Kira and the kids love it. So I'll get a big one and portion it at Kira's, and then bring home what I will eat for myself. Friday, my son saw the receipt from the groceries and was irate how much the salmon cost for the amount I got. I told him the truth, that I gave 2/3 of the salmon to Kira. He blew up and demanded I stop buying her groceries, or if I continue, he wants the same amount spent on him. The thing is, I get him everything he asks for. It's just that a box of Pizza Pops is less money than salmon. I also tend to get organic produce for myself and Kira and the boys, but my son refuses to eat certain things if they are organic. It doesn't make sense to me, but he said I'm an a-hole and read me a post from here about another mom who gave better food to one kid over another, so I thought maybe I would post. Update. Many of you have pointed out I'm enabling my son. I don't think I was, because I've been very clear how I feel about him not being there for the boys, but actions are as important as words. I will not stop being in Kira and the boys' lives ever, and in fact, I will probably increase the amount of time and resources I give to them. I also want to just state in no uncertain terms, as I've had a couple messages and comments about it. Kira was never unfaithful. Her only crime was being unwilling to forgive my son for some actions, unless he went to therapy, which he did not do, and rightfully informing HR at his former workplace of something relevant. OP's adult son lives in OP's home, and OP cooks for him. He doesn't have any right to comment on how OP spends her own money, or who she talks to, especially considering the person in question is the mother of his children, OP's grandchildren. While it's great that OP has a relationship with her grandkids and helps out, it sucks that OP is enabling him. He doesn't see his own children, and he's living in OP's house while she buys groceries for his kids. At his age, he needs to be more responsible. But because of OP, he doesn't have to do his own grocery shopping, much less make sure his kids are fed. Lava Planet 88 says, "Oh my God, not the a-hole. Your son is totally taking advantage of you and has no say whatsoever as to how you spend your money or time. I think that it's time he finds his own place and takes responsibility for himself and his children." Cuddle Monkey says, "Not the a-hole. He's a child and a deadbeat father. I'd kick his butt out and ask Kira and the kids to move in." Careless Image says, "Not the a-hole. Have you considered moving your son out of your home and moving Kira and grandsons in? Your son seems very spoiled. He needs to step up to be a better parent." My 45 male in-laws were staying with us because my mother-in-law had a cataract surgery scheduled in town. Everything went great, and this Wednesday, she was cleared to travel back home. My family decided to host a dinner to celebrate mother-in-law's successful procedure, with my wife, 39 female, and our 14-year-old son assisting in the preparations. My son, who's passionate about learning to cook, took charge of making the main dish, a chicken recipe he had been practicing. It was us, father-in-law and mother-in-law, my wife's brother, 30s male, and sister, 25-ish female. My brother-in-law used to be a professional chef, but his restaurant went under with the virus. This will be important later. He decided to help my son plate his chicken. Apparently, it was a little dry, so they baptized it Sahara chicken. As we gathered around the table to enjoy the meal, my son proudly presented the chicken he had cooked. It was a big moment for him, and I could see the excitement and nervousness in his eyes. The chicken tasted amazing, and everyone told him so. My brother-in-law, on the other hand, said something along the lines of, "Trust the pro. This was the tastiest sand I've ever ate." Everyone, including my son, laughed it off, thinking it was all in good fun. But I couldn't find it amusing. My protective instincts kicked in, and I lashed out at my brother-in-law, asking him since when was he a pro at sand, because he no longer was a professional cook. Brother-in-law laughed, but I could see I had touched a sore spot, and it created an uncomfortable atmosphere at the dinner table. Both my wife and my son later told me they think I was out of line. My son says that I ruined what was supposed to be a celebration. My wife told me the occasion was about her mother, not our son's chicken, and even he was making fun of the Sahara chicken, so I made things awkward over nothing. Reflecting on the situation, I'm torn. On one hand, I wanted to stand up for my son, who had worked hard on the meal, and, well, if you can't take a joke, don't make one. On the other hand, maybe I overreacted and my response was out of proportion. I'm wondering if I should have just let the comments slide and not let them ruin the celebration. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for my reaction, or was I right to defend my son's cooking during this special dinner? I Fight Whales says, you're the a-hole. If your son was comfortable with the banter, what's the point of going for the throat, mate? Lots of really good restaurants went under during the virus, and I assume that you, as a man, realized that many people set great stock in their professional success. To attack his ego in a way that was neither funny nor related to the situation, but clearly aimed to diminish him and hurt, and was utterly unnecessary. Children aren't made out of porcelain. If your kid can take a joke, good for him. Shows he's got real confidence. Don't ruin it for him by jumping down everyone's throat who doesn't put him on a pedestal. That's actually what many children are embarrassed about. Also, what a great sport that he had the balls to tell you that himself. He seems very mature. Listen to him. Spare Article says, so your kid's chicken was tasty, but dry, and even he was joining in on the joke. And you decided to throw a zinger about what is probably a seriously painful death of his dream, through no fault of his own. It's nasty and very targeted, and instead of standing up for your son, you look like a malicious a-hole. You're the a-hole.